Lawrence County Lowdown is presented by Self Regional Healthcare.
Our guest today for the fourth episode of the Lawrence County Lowdown is the mayor of the city of Lawrence, Mr. Nathan Senn. Mayor Senn, how are you today?
Doing just fine. Thank you for having me.
Great. We're glad that you're here with us. We appreciate you coming on. As I'm sure you're aware, there is always a lot of conversation going on about what's happening in the city, across the community, and so we want to give you the opportunity today to address some of the topics that we know are on people's minds, to give your perspective, help people kind of understand better what's going on in Lawrence, what's happening, and also hopefully take some time to do a little bit of big picture look, as you come towards the end of your second term here in office of where we've been, where we're going, what you're proud of in your accomplishments. So hopefully we can get a pretty good range of conversation in here. You ready to go?
Sounds great.
All right. Well, let's start last winter. And it seemed like, particularly around December, really near the turn of the year, tensions between both you and members of city council, but also between some members of city council themselves, seemed to reach kind of a high point. A lot was going on. Can you give us your perspective on what happened? Why did things kind of come to a head, when and how they did, and what's happening now? What's the relationship between the mayor's office and the city council here in July?
Sure.
Or August, we've moved over into now.
Yeah, August now. I'd say that a lot of things kind of came together all at one time. There's some legitimate maybe concern about information that city council had, and the need to sort of update some of those processes to make sure everybody was on the same page. And just to be honest, there's also just, rumors and misinformation, stuff like that out there. And if city council has a bunch of different things coming at them from different angles, it can be hard to know how to process that. And so I think that just sort of led to the tension that you're talking about.
Yeah. Would you be willing to go into a little more detail about maybe what is a legitimate issue that city council was facing that kind of got roped into these things that you think, or that you would argue are more misinformation or misplaced things? What were the legitimate concerns that needed to be addressed?
Sure. I mean, so a lot of it just had to do with transition. The former city administrator left, and there are a lot of things that the ongoing communication that would happen with city council was something I sort of had delegated to him. And so, just sort of the natural transition of who's telling who the things probably led to a few speed bumps.
Okay. And do you think those have those things been handled? Do you think we're in a better place with all of those relationships now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we tried to handle things very proactively. We had a workshop with the Municipal Association, and we actually got some good tips from them about a system called Town Cloud. And what Town Cloud allows us to do is upload our agendas and ordinances, whatever's going to be coming before city council, to make sure everybody gets the same thing at the same time in the same way. And that's not just true of city council. It's something that the public can access too. So just sort of modernizing those systems. And then another sort of collective effort that we committed ourselves to is to having ongoing monthly workshops. So rather than just having discussion or hearing an update on what's happening at the top of the monthly city council meeting and my mayor's remarks, there's sort of more of a beat by beat dialogue with city council.
Good. And last question in that, at one point there was an ethics investigation underway. Is that ongoing? Has that been resolved? Can you comment on that at all?
I can't comment on that, but
All right.
yeah.
Well, we appreciate you giving a little bit of an update on what's going on there. You talked about, until recently, Lawrence has had both a mayor and a city administrator. There have been kind of different roles within city government. So we're going to come into the segment that's sweeping the county, explain it to Andrew like he's 5. And what I'd ask you to do, what is the role of the mayor's office in City of Lawrence government? And then what is your role? What are maybe some misconceptions about your role that people have about your position and your duties, and what it is you actually do in relation to city government compared to a city administrator?
So if you think about city council, let's pretend we're all a family going on vacation. All right. So the city council decides where we're going on vacation, and they set aside the money to actually get there. Right.
Okay.
The person who's actually driving the car and getting us there and avoiding the potholes in the road is the mayor. And so the department heads and departments of city government actually work directly with me. I have sort of decided to make some changes about the way we handle things with the role of city administrator, at least during my time. I'll let future administrations decide how they want to handle it.
Yeah, and what were those changes?
So if you think about all of the roles that a city administrator has to wear, all the hats the city administrator has to wear, it could be everything from assisting the mayor with economic development to managing grants to making sure the operations and equipment of the city are being maintained, and making sure that finances are well managed. And I think it's at a time when we were sort of smaller, it was a little bit more manageable to have one person wear that many hats. But just because of the way Lawrence has grown and developed, the person that's really good at that economic development stuff may not necessarily be the person that's great at equipment or financial management. So we've really sort of split those roles up into 3 different responsibilities for 3 different staff members.
And so that's the plan moving forward right now, is instead of finding a new city administrator, 3 different folks are going to take on those roles.
Mm-hmm. So our city finance officer has more of an elevated role. They have a seat at the table, so all department heads know exactly what's going on with the city's finances, how much money we got in the bank, and they're better informed now going forward. And rather than the administrator role, which is kind of a top-down sort of relationship, there's more of an emphasis on department heads having responsibilities in their own departments, and sort of facilitating the way those departments interplay with each other.
Gotcha. But just to be clear, even when there was a single city administrator, the administrator answered to the mayor. The mayor was still on top of that system. And that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that's different than the system in place in Clinton, for example. Is that because Clinton has a stronger city administrator and the mayor is more of a, I don't want to say ceremonial, if that's going to be insulting to Mayor Randall, but that's kind of what the city and the mayor and administrative relationship is there, right?
That's right. There's more of, I'm the chief administrative and executive officer by statute in the city.
Okay. And here's kind of my perspective, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I was a kid growing up in Lawrence, and then I was gone for 10 years, and then I came back, and you were mayor. So I wasn't paying a ton of attention to what was going on, but it kind of seems to me that maybe you have exercised that executive power, that power as the chief executive, maybe a little more bluntly than previous mayors, maybe a little more directly than has happened in the past, and that has kind of caused a little bit of shock to the system in Laurens during your time. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think that's a fair statement. I would argue that some of our most effective mayors have been more active. I have a picture on my wall behind me here of Mayor Nathaniel B. Dial, and I look across the city now, and so much of what we have today, he is responsible for starting. He's very active in that role. And more recently, Mayor Brownlee, I think, took a very active role and made some big differences. So when Laurens has had good leadership and strong leadership with a clear vision, I think Laurens has done well. But it always has to be a team, and I think that process of making sure that you're building coalitions and working with people all across the community, so you don't just have kind of a Lone Ranger mentality, is important.
And would you say you maybe had to grow into that part of it as you got in? Do you feel like you were doing a good job with that from the start, or is that something that you've had to develop over time?
I'd say that's something that comes pretty naturally to me. I think that the tough part can come when you can't make everybody happy. We live in a small town, and there are times when feelings get hurt, and if you try to do the right thing, that may step on some toes. So I'd say it's almost gotten harder as time's gone along, because maybe there's a tendency to see what the new guy is going to do up front.
Well, and I think there is, we can state it honestly. It has seemed like your second term, there's been a little more hostility, a little more tension over your second term than there was your first. Do you have anything you contribute that to? Or just everybody getting a little more comfortable with each other?
Well, I don't want to localize it to Laurens. This is not unique to Laurens. We're actually seeing that trend all across the state, and one of really all across the nation. But one of the things the Municipal Association has been focusing on is civility and the way that we interact together as local leaders. I mean, I would say that there's a culture that has become more common of people just sort of saying what they want to say and being unkind, that being more acceptable to be publicly unkind.
All right.
So, that trickles down and has effects right here in Laurens too.
Well, I appreciate you kind of guiding us through some of those things. I want to talk for a minute, shift gears a little bit to some of the topics of conversation that have been in the community recently and get into maybe some of those specifics. And my first question is a bonus. Explain it to Andrew like he's 5 for you.
Okay.
What is rolling coal, and why shouldn't I be allowed to do it inside of the city?
Rolling coal is belching out thick black smoke from your diesel vehicle.
Okay.
Usually by modifying that vehicle to do it.
All right.
Why shouldn't you be able to do it? Well, that's a question that has yet to be finally decided by City Council. We had one of those workshops, and we knew that we needed to update our nuisance ordinance. And as we were talking about what sort of updates needed to be in there, that topic came up. And so when the draft ordinance was prepared, that was included in there, and it's had first reading, but it hadn't had second reading. So
Gotcha.
we'll see where that goes.
We'll see. And that was included with a noise ordinance and regulations on chickens within city limits as well, right? Those were the three things that were going on in that conversation.
Yeah, it's sort of actually two different ordinances.
Okay.
So the animal ordinance that is pending right now really just puts a little bit more meat on the bones is to addressing nuisances that are caused by animals and making sure animals don't get abused. And the nuisance ordinance, just sort of also clarifies some pretty antiquated language. There's reference in the old ordinance to phonographs and the operation of steam engines, and those are typically our biggest nuisance items these days.
Don't necessarily show up on the streets as much as they once did.
Yeah.
Well, let me, as we talk about, obviously you and I are probably not the two people most impacted by a ban on rolling coal, and something like that. That's not something that's going to directly impact us, but there are people in the city for whom those are the kinds of things that they care a lot about, that they like being able to have. And one of the things we saw in response to our episode with Dabbs Davis from the Chamber is that there's a portion of the community who hears when city officials or county officials start talking about growth, talking about progress, start using those things. What they hear is something that is going to exclude them, or something that is going to maybe even erase things that are important to them, things that are significant to him and them, that they're kind of getting removed from this picture of Laurens going forward. What do you say to people that kind of see the steps you've taken in office, the things that are going on in the county as, yes, we're getting things, but we're also getting rid of a lot that maybe we need to take a step back on?
So when we're dealing with things like nuisances, I think it's important to put that in proper context. So it is absolutely true that we want to respect the individual liberties and freedoms of individuals to be able to use and enjoy their property, whether that's where they have their house or the vehicle they ride in the way that they want to, as long as it complies with the law. But those freedoms also come with responsibilities, right? So we don't just have any sort of freedom where you get to say whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, right? Like even freedom of speech, you can't yell fire in a theater, right?
Right.
So, so where your freedom butts up against somebody else's freedom, then what are those limits? And I think what we're trying to do is basically say, like, be a good neighbor, enjoy those freedoms, but when you're doing it in a way that disturbs other people, that's where we're trying to draw a line there. It's not about excluding anybody, but I think there's some things like, there is a bit of a city-county divide. If you have a half acre or 50 acres that you live on and your nearest neighbor is a half mile down the road, your concept of a neighbor and how you affect your neighbor is going to be a little bit different than if you live in the city.
Well, and that was going to be kind of a follow-up, that what do we do, in a place like Laurens that has way more county than city, that,
hmm
Lawrence County is pretty big geographically,
hmm
has a good sized population, and then there is the city of Lawrence. How do you work with county council and things like that to try and, so my truck is fine when I'm in the county, but and I'm bringing this up because I've got a student. One of my youth got pulled over for noise with his truck recently,
hmm
and he has to come into the city for school. He has to come into the city for some of those things. So what do you do when the county and the city hold different standards for some of that stuff? How do y'all try to work through that on the executive level or the
Sure.
municipal level?
So when we're talking about a noise violation with a vehicle, usually, and I would say this is probably true of rolling coal too, that's not something that happens constantly when you're operating that vehicle. It happens when you punch it.
Right.
That's an intentional act that person is taking. And when you modify your vehicle to purposely make it louder, that's an intentional act to try to do something that could be disturbing. We already have this law on the book, so it's really nothing new. It's just clarifying it with modern language. But beyond that, I would say if somebody is driving the posted speed limit of 25 or 30 miles an hour in the city, even those modified systems aren't usually loud to the point where somebody would get pulled over. Usually it's an issue when you have somebody speeding and really punching it, trying to show off a little bit.
Gotcha. Well, and I don't want to get bogged down in these specifics, but I do kind of feel like it's a tension point that we see in the community, is this idea of what does growth look like? What does progress look like? How do you modernize some of these ordinances while still keeping, what a lot of people feel like is a central part of Lawrence culture, in different areas. And like I said, I don't want to get bogged down in the specifics of that, but it's a conversation that, we've done 2 episodes and it showed up in 2 of them so far. So it's something that's ongoing, or 4 episodes.
Yeah, I would say this. I wouldn't say it is a key part of Lawrence culture to be able to rattle somebody's windows as you're driving past them on the street. I grew up here, and that wasn't part of it. But I did grow up here on a farm about 3 miles outside of town. I feel very, very strongly that the rural areas of the county should be rural, and there should be a very definite difference when you come into the city. Because, I respect that more rural way of life. It's something I really hope we don't lose.
Right. Well, let's keep it going. Like I said, I probably got us bogged down on that, into the weeds of that a little more than we needed to. Can you give us an update on what's happening with the former Smith Chevrolet? And I think there's been a lot of chatter and back and forth. People kind of don't understand how that process went, and maybe some confusion, some thoughts of people believing something about your role in it. So can you just let us know what's going on there, if you know, and anything you're willing to share about the situation with Smith Chevrolet?
Sure, absolutely. This is one of those things that there has been a lot of misinformation about, so I'm glad you asked about it. I have absolutely no role, no ownership interest, no financial stake, no management responsibility, nothing to do with that property. Never did, never will. I actually found out after the fact that that I was listed as the registered agent when the LLC was formed. A registered agent is just a person who accepts paperwork if a company gets sued. Never received a penny for it. I have no interest in that.
Yeah.
So, with that said, I have, I know that a plan is being developed, and it has not been presented to the city yet. So however that plan looks when it's ready to be presented, it'll follow the normal process.
Okay. Well, appreciate you clearing some things up there. Two areas that have gotten kind of public attention recently for how they're used, kind of the state of where they are right now, are the amphitheater and the tennis courts at the city park. Can you tell us, are there any plans in place for the upkeep or the using those facilities, the amphitheater in particular, more than it's currently used? Anything like that?
So both of those facilities are currently closed. We're in touch with a contractor about the upgrades that are going to happen at the tennis courts. Plans are actually to convert a couple of those courts to pickleball, because that's something that we have identified as a demand exists for that. I do want to say, while we're on topic, like, part of the challenge with those tennis courts is because of where they're located, and the erosion that happened with Hurricane Helene has not helped. So anytime you have a big ticket project like that, I mean, we're talking somewhere in the neck of the woods of $150,000 to $200,000 to resurface a tennis court. You got to balance the need versus the number of citizens that is serving, and prioritize things. And we tried to chase down money from outside sources and grants as much as we could to try to be able to do that. But we have a plan in place to sort of improve those and have them serviceable. I still think we're in the hunt for a long-term solution in an area that may not have issues with erosion.
Okay.
Amphitheater is a little bit different. That was built on a TV schedule. So when town hall came, they were looking at one site. They weren't able to get that worked out, so they sort of fell back on that, the site where the amphitheater is, as an alternative. But really, it's not the best spot for an amphitheater, because there's very little parking. It's not very accessible. So the master plan that was developed before I even came into office called for a different location. And to me, it doesn't make sense to take good hard-earned taxpayer dollars and put it into rehabbing a facility that really isn't suited for that purpose long term.
And I think there's been some conversation about maybe we could do something different with it. Maybe it could be torn down and, become a skate park has been one of the things people mentioned, but something that could be used. Are there any, I know that's kind of a long-term project for what you're describing, but are there any plans in the works to maybe it's not an amphitheater, but it's something usable for the city?
Yes. So you sort of beat me to it. We've already been in conversations with some folks from the community. Actually met with one of those folks that is interested in having it be a skate park. I really love that idea, because a major need that we recognize is having space for young people to gather and have a safe place to be, and make those plans with young people involved, so that there's some buy-in and say in what we actually do.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And you touched on town hall. I'm hoping someday, if we get big enough, I want to do a full town hall retrospective. Because is anything they built still up and used the way they claimed it would be? I don't know. The Coke sign's still fine, I guess. But so someday we'll do a whole town hall discussion. Last thing in kind of these current events, have there been any changes to the way Lawrence city elections will be held next year that the public should be aware of?
There, yeah, this sort of stay tuned. There will be. Uh, so we found out that like right at the end of the legislative session, this past year, this past June, uh, a bill was passed through the General Assembly and the governor signed it into law, um, that standardizes the dates of municipal elections. And it actually affects very few, cities across the state, but Lawrence, Gray Court, and Clinton are all included, all affected. Um, so we'll have to pass an ordinance that moves our date, according to the date selected by the legislature.
Okay. So assuming that ordinance passes, I know we're talking about things that have to go through. I guess let me ask it this way. If no ordinance is passed, when would the election be versus if an ordinance is passed?
If no ordinance is passed, it automatically defaults to November 2027, is my understanding. The difficulty is, we reached out to the Municipal Association, and because the effective date of that legislation is January 1st, and our elections would ordinarily happen in March, you would have this weird situation where the date would be moved automatically, but people would have already been through the process of filing and all that. That usually happens in December. So, but one way or the other, by law, we can't have them in March.
So that is what the state law says, is that March is no longer a possibility.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So the Municipal Association's recommendation to us was to go ahead and prepare an ordinance sooner than later, so that we can clear that up.
Okay.
And then make sure our law complies with state law.
Make sure we're in line with that. Gotcha. All right. Well, I appreciate you touching on some of those topics and giving us some information, getting kind of more of an understanding of what's going on out there. I want to shift to a couple of broad things for you.
Sure.
So I want to go back to 2018, 2019. What led, and tell me if I'm wrong on the dates there, but I think I'm right. What led to your decision to run for mayor? What was it you were hoping to accomplish?
It was not a lifelong ambition of mine to be mayor. In fact, I had a friend of mine who actually asked me and encouraged me to do it. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks. But when I moved back to Laurens in 2016, shortly thereafter, I got involved with Main Street Laurens, and then I became chair of the Main Street Laurens board. And so I was working with the city, and I could sort of see things that the city was doing and things the city wasn't doing to put in place the downtown master plan that had been developed back in 2017. And there's just some things a nonprofit can't do that it required the city to do. And then just more broadly, like, where was Laurens going? And how are we going to get there? There didn't seem to be a clear vision from the prior administration. And I kind of got, it was frustrating to hear people have this sort of negative mentality that we can't have nice things. And, there was this perception like you have to go to Greenville, you have to go to Charleston, go somewhere else, to have a nice, beautiful city. And I was like, the bones are here. We have some really great stuff right here. We just need to be about getting to work, improving it. So that really was the drive. I felt like I had a few good ideas to offer and wanted to be able to help where I could.
Yeah. I know I said we were done with current events, but you did bring it up, and we'd be remiss. The news about Main Street Lawrence and its accreditation
Hmm.
came out just this weekend before we're recording. Can you give us any update on the city's relationship with Main Street, how the city intends to move forward working with them as they kind of maneuver this new process and what they're going through right now?
Well, though I sit on that board, I can't speak for the board.
Okay.
But I can speak about the city's relationship. There are so many people that have worked so hard over the years, to build Lawrence and sort of bring us back from the bad old days, where a lot of businesses were closed and you could sort of see the tumbleweeds roll across the square after dark.
Hmm.
Um, so, and Main Street has played a big part in that. I think internally that board, just from reading the press release, have acknowledged that there's some reorganization that needs to happen. So we want to be responsible with any taxpayer dollars that go to supporting Main Street and make sure that those are being used effectively. But I think it's undeniable that the role that that organization plays as a community-based organization, so there's real public buy-in, is really important, and that should be
Yeah.
maintained.
Yeah. As far as you know, will Squealing on the Square still take place this fall?
As far as I know, I think they're developing a plan, but it hadn't been presented to the city or anything.
Gotcha. All right, let's go back big picture for just a moment. One decision that you've made as mayor that you would make again, even though it's proven to be unpopular, or it was unpopular in the moment.
Yeah, I like the unpopular in the moment better. um, I'd say the plaza. That was one of those things where at the time, I mean, it was being done like right before I sought re-election, and I got a lot of guff for it at the time. But I can't tell you the number of people who've come up to me since it's been done and said, "I really can't imagine this not being here now."
Mm.
And I mean, you see like community organizations and churches doing hymn sings, and the school district, and it's really kind of become a focal point for people gathering. Um, I knew it was the right thing to do. I'd do it all over again.
Okay, good. Is there what's something you've changed your mind on since you took office?
Hmm. Um, I think the education is very important, and there's a value to having somebody that has expertise in their particular field, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my idea of what makes the best city employee has changed.
Mm.
Um, I think now more than ever, I really value someone who has drive and initiative. Um, like it's great to know stuff, but if you're constantly having to be told like, do this, do this, do this, um, you're just another responsibility for whoever's above you. So having a team of people who are real go-getters, um, is the goal. And I think we've done a good job of assembling a good team.
Gotcha. And is there any upcoming project, anything that you can tease for us that maybe the public doesn't know right now that you're excited about that's coming up soon?
Yeah. We have been beating the bushes for several years now on a grocery store for the west side of town.
That was coming.
Is it really? Yeah.
Oh, that was coming. Don't worry.
So, you know, I know more about grocery store development than I ever thought I would. One thing I can tell you, and I hope the public understands this, is that one thing that I've learned in this process is that you have basically two buckets of kinds of grocery stores, right? You have the ones that will consider going into an existing spot and the kind that will only go into a new location, new building.
Mm-hmm.
So we chased down Piggly Wiggly, about that close. Piggly Wiggly is one of the ones that would go into an existing facility. At the 11th hour, they sort of pulled out, and of course, big areas in there now. So I guess all's well that ends well. But after that opportunity was sort of off the table, we switched focus to grocery stores that would locate in new places, and then look at what the new place was where they'd go. Just yesterday, we had some really good development and conversation on that end, and we'll be chasing that down.
Yeah. Stay tuned. There,
yeah, stay tuned.
There we go. Well, Mayor Senn, we've gone a little longer than usual already, and we appreciate your candor. But we've got one more segment that folks have come to expect. Are you ready to take on the Lowdown Lightning Round?
I'll do my best.
Here we go. All right, Lightning Round incoming. If you could bring back one Laurens establishment, what would it be?
For others, I'd say maybe the Hub. I think that was really nostalgic for a lot of folks.
Yeah, the Hub. The Hub was a big piece that we've lost. That's a good one. One business specifically on the square that you wish was there. One thing that you wish the square had that it doesn't currently have.
Bakery. Like a sort of donut shop kind of place.
Okay.
Maybe combined with place to get some dessert after dinner, something like that.
There you go. Now that my face is on camera once a week, I don't know that would be good for me with my office this close to the square, but it would be fun. Weirdest phone call you've received as mayor?
Oh, that's easy. That's super easy. So during the pandemic, when there were all sorts of supply chain disruptions, there's a guy that called me, and he said that now that we don't have troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, and a lot of those guys had been trained to drive trucks, what we need to do is sort of nationalize truck driving and have the armed forces drive trucks to deliver tractor trailers worth of goods all over the country.
And I was sort of you as mayor of Laurens were supposed to get that going?
Right.
Okay.
I appreciate the vote of confidence, man, but
yeah,
makes you feel good. Direct line to the president.
Yeah, it makes you feel good about what people thought you could get done.
Yeah.
That brings me in. What's one thing you learned being mayor during COVID that has stuck with you?
I think communication is very important. That's one thing I think the city did well, actually. And I would say that about Helene too. Like, part of leadership is not just allowing things to happen, like keeping calm and letting people know that there is leadership and that we're working on stuff. That information may not change what they do in their daily life, but at least they know that there's somebody with their finger on the pulse.
Gotcha. If money and like people's touring schedules and things like that were no object, what band would you bring to Freedom Fest?
Well, I'm a millennial of a certain age, so probably Coldplay.
Man.
You said money's no object.
Money's no object. Yeah, go for it. Coldplay. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't Coldplay. That
British
one caught me off guard.
Right,
it's a little bit. I don't know. Did the revolution even happen if we're bringing Coldplay in? You got during COVID, like a lot of us, you were forced to get deep into cooking. What is your favorite thing to cook?
I make pretty good eggs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is it my favorite? I don't know. That's hard to. I don't know. It's my favorite thing to cook.
Favorite. But you feel like you do the eggs
Yeah.
well?
I do. I'm pretty good at eggs.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm going to name some things, and I want you to tell me whether they fall under the city, the county, or someone else's jurisdiction.
Okay.
You ready?
All right.
All right. Courthouse renovation.
The county.
So one more time for everyone. The city
people in
didn't
the
have
back.
anything to do with the courthouse
Right,
renovation.
the county. And we're grateful for it. Like we really appreciate the county's investment.
It really does look good.
Yeah.
Parking spaces on the square.
The city.
And some work's been done.
Yes.
Some work's been done on that recently as well.
Can I also say, by the way, like, for 7.5 years of my time in office, we prioritized other roads elsewhere.
Mm.
We wanted to make sure that, we don't control the big roads around town, but of the ones that we do, we tried to prioritize other places.
Gotcha. You jumped ahead of me on roads too. Getting Lauren's a steakhouse.
Well, we've done that. But economic development, I guess technically the city could be Main Street, could be the chamber. We all work together.
Depends on where it is.
Yeah.
Road conditions.
It depends. If it's one of those few little tiny lanes that the city owns, if it's almost every road in the city, it's DOT.
Okay. Property tax increases.
It depends. A set reassessment's done by the county. The city has not raised millage during my time in office. The county has its own property tax. So if you live in the city, you pay a little of both.
You deal with both. Gotcha.
Yep.
The approval of housing subdivisions.
If it's in the city, planning commission first and then city council.
Okay. And you already touched on getting a grocery store on the west side of town.
Yeah. Again, there's no grocery store that I can go and pick one off the shelf and say, hey, come here. But we work with economic development.
Gotcha. All right. What is your proudest accomplishment as mayor?
I think our new land use ordinance. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people, I feel like the marching orders from the public is we don't want to become fill in the blank city.
Mm-hmm.
We want to kind of keep the look and feel of Laurens, and our new ordinance is designed to do that.
Okay. Will you be running for re-election in 2027?
That's not a decision I've made.
Man, I was hoping if I snuck that in 50 minutes into the interview, we might be able to get you, but there you go. Finish this sentence for me, and we're going to end here. The future of Laurens is blank.
Community.
Okay.
We will prosper well if we pull together.
All right. Well, Mayor Senn, we appreciate you coming in. We appreciate you giving up your time and letting us talk about some of these things. And we appreciate all of you for tuning in and listening. And we hope that you'll be with us next week. Talk to you soon. Bye.